I know 6 or 7. That's pretty awesome. So here we go. All right, so today we're going to do our design thinking fundamentals, and that's going to be some design thinking techniques, and that's going to be a great follow up from our last session. And so I'm going to go slow with the tools, but I want you to have fun. And again, if it's not if using the tech, don't let the technology stand in the way of the lesson. So I'm going to introduce the design thinking sort of techniques to you and know that you can use them in person. That's amazing. But you can also use them remotely, and that's important. So I'm going to show you how to use the techniques both, in person. I'm going to show you how to use them in person. I'm going to explain how to use them in person. And then I'm going to just explain how you could use the techniques if you had to deliver with the remote teams over Zoom. So I just want you to be able to point to both of those experiences and see how you can use the tools. So that's the goal for today. So again, just as a reminder, I'm here to give you the gifts. And so if there's something that you need additional explanation on, or there's something that you don't understand or need clarity on, please unmute yourself or put your question in the chat, put your hand up, whatever is most comfortable for you. Because again, it's my job to make sure that you get the gifts. That's the most important part of me. All right, so I am going to share my screen and we're going to get to it. What a good day. All right. Go back to my beginning slide. Boom. There we go. And again, I've already apologized in advance. I think I'm coming down with a cold or flu. And I just want to let you know that if there's some unclarity, again, don't hesitate to say something. All right. Yes, and we are nearly towards the end of the journey, and that is really unbelievable. And strategic planning fundamentals is going to also be a fun session. So I hope to see you next month, and well, later this month. Ooh, and next week, right? So I love when I get to do like right in a row. So I'm excited. So I'll see you on the 24th, which is really soon. All right, so today I want to make sure I talk about some of my favorite design thinking tools, and I put some things in the to go box just because I think it could be very helpful. You know, I'm all about the free tools, so I'll talk about the one that I like to use the most, and then if you feel comfortable using the tools, I'm going to give you some tips and techniques about using some more complicated of the design thinking techniques and tools. So we are going to get into it. The first tool is called the Rose Thorn Bud. And so I'm going to stop sharing just for a second because I want to ground you here. Now, you've probably all done SWOT analysis in your work. So you have a sense of a SWOT analysis. A SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. If you haven't used the SWOT analysis, we're going to talk about that more during the strategic planning session. So more to come. But the SWOT analysis is a really critical tool that you can use during strategic planning, but it's also very useful if you're trying to get a better understanding of things that are positive and negative and things that have opportunity. So the Rose Thorn Bud is sort of a really good play, a really good design thinking technique that builds from the SWOT analysis. In reality, the Rose Thorn Bud is like a visual SWOT analysis, and this can be very helpful in lots of ways. Okay, so again, I'm just taking you from something that you know that you're very familiar with, a SWOT analysis, and I'm taking you to something akin to it, Rose Thorn Bud. And Anthony has a question. This is a classic SWOT analysis question. In fact, if I was thinking, I probably would have reversed and did the strategic planning session first and then this one. But I was so excited to get the design stuff out, so I could hold myself back. The difference typically between a weakness and a threat, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, is that a weakness is often internal to the organization Like a strength and a weakness is often internal to an organization, and an opportunity and a threat is sort of like a positive and a negative that is external to the organization. So the economy is an example of a threat. Some private sector doing the work of the nonprofit sector might feel like a threat to the organization, an external threat. A funder who's changed its mission and no longer funds youth activities could be seen as a threat because of shrinking resources available in the market, or you've lost connection that you've been building with the funder. So oftentimes it's important to distinguish the weaknesses and threats. One way we can distinguish a weakness and a threat is that we can think of them as internal factors versus external factors, and that can be very helpful for us. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. The other thing that I'll mention that also comes up when we talk about the SWOT is that some people find threats is like triggering in a way. So sometimes we will say strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. And that way, challenges gives us the ability to wrap our mind around what could feel threatening without feeling like you have to go, extreme, whereas a threat feels like something heightened to something extreme. But we really want you to think about the challenges. And this is important because nobody knows these things as much as you. You all run the day-to-day of the organizations. You've been in this work. This is the love of this work. You know where the strengths, where the weaknesses are. You know where the opportunities are. You know where the threats and the challenges are. So it's really important that we can ask these questions, really, so that we can be best prepared to take advantage and leverage the strengths and mitigate the threats and the weaknesses. We want to, again, leverage the strengths and opportunities and mitigate the weaknesses and the threats. And I'll talk about this next time in the context of strategic planning, is that we mitigate those factors through partnerships oftentimes. And that just a reminder that we can only be distinctive in our areas of strength. So knowing what those strengths are is incredibly important. So I'm a huge fan of a SWOT analysis, which makes me an even bigger fan of the Rose Thorn Bud, which I'm going to introduce to you now. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Anthony, thank you for your question. And again, I'm sure others have it. And so any question you put in the chat, I think your peers benefit from it tremendously. Okay, awesome. Okay, good. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So a Rose Thorn Bud is very similar to a SWOT analysis. And in fact, I like to call it a visual SWOT analysis, because what the Rose Thorn Bud does is that you would take 3 sets of sticky notes, different colors. Now, you might say, I don't have sticky notes, I only got red. Okay, red works. You just define what the sticky notes mean, what colors mean what. You can create the legend. So the pink sticky notes means a positive or a strength. The yellow sticky notes mean a negative or a weakness. And the green sticky note is opportunity. So this is rose, strength or positive, thorn, negative or weakness, which is the yellow sticky note, and bud, which is opportunity, which is the green sticky note. So again, the Rose Thorn Bud is a visual SWOT analysis where we use the color of the sticky note to help us signify what's a strength, what's a weakness, and what's an opportunity. You can create the legend. It can be 3 random colors as long as you demonstrate and set up a legend so that people know which color means what. But you're essentially selecting 3 different colors of sticky notes, and you're identifying which sticky notes mean positive, which sticky notes mean negative, and which sticky notes mean opportunity, which color sticky note means that. So the beautiful part of this visual SWOT analysis is in the technique. So the first piece is that we get the 3 colors, we identify which color means what, and then what we do is we create some parameters. So the first part is that we want to put as many ideas on the sticky notes as we can. All of the strengths that we can think about for our organizations, for example. all of the weaknesses, for example, and then all of the opportunities. So again, positives or strengths, negatives or weaknesses or threats even, and then opportunities. And you put one idea per sticky note. And this is important because part of the activity is moving the sticky notes all around. And if you put 3 ideas on a sticky note, then it's difficult to move because those ideas might go into different categories. So it's important to put one idea per sticky note. And this is important. I'm going to come out of screen share just for a second to tell you the other important piece about both a SWOT analysis and a rose thorn bud is that it's important that something can be a strength and a weakness. So it could be that you have strong leadership, but that's a strength. But then it could be a weakness because we haven't thought about succession planning. And so now then that becomes a weakness. And so that's okay. Things can be a strength, and in a different context, they can be a weakness. That's perfectly fine. It just reminds us that we need to see the things that we have in their strength context, and we need to recognize those things, in a weakness context as well. So that's perfectly fine as well. Something can be a strength and the weakness. In the rose thorn bud exercise, you could put the same concept on 2 different color sticky notes. So it could be a pink sticky note and it could be a yellow sticky note in our example to demonstrate a positive and a negative, a strength or a weakness. Does that make sense so far? Okay, good. All right, wonderful. So you can see that you can use this technique in person. You just gather your group around, you give them all 3 packs of sticky notes, collection of each color, you define which sticky note means what, and then you go about the business of doing the rose thorn bud. 1 idea per post-it, and remember the ideas are color relevant. And then we do the second part of that work, which is a clustering activity where we look at things that feel like they go together. And so if there is this affinity, things that naturally feel like they go together, we pull all of those sticky notes and put them in one area. And then we find out what label captures this cluster. And then we label that cluster, whatever it is. And so now we have a labeled cluster and then all of these sticky notes with these multiple colors. I'm going to go back to share my screen to speak more on that. All right, so part 1 is the ideation component. So 1 idea per sticky, as many ideas that you come up with, and you categorize it by color, strength or positive, weakness, threat, negative, opportunity, bud. And then the second part is you look at all of the post-it notes, no matter what color they are, and then you look for a theme, or it's called affinity clustering, but that doesn't matter. You look for a theme and you look for there's a connection, and so you cluster those ideas around this connection, and then you name that connection. Simple. Now, this is what it could look like. Now, you can't see what the sticky note says, and that's fine, because what matters here is that you can look at this organization and you can say, when it comes to, staff strengths, that's what that cluster is labeled as. There's lots of strengths and lots of opportunity, some weaknesses, but you get to see the colors tell you where the strengths. So when it comes to leadership, this organization has significant strength and opportunity. Where this organization needs to build is, this office rapport. There's some negatives there, but there's also lots of strengths, And we can also see that when it comes to productivity, there's significant weaknesses, only a little bit of strength, but lots of opportunity, lots of potential here. So what the visual SWOT analysis does is that it tells us just by looking at the color where our strengths, where our opportunities, and where our weaknesses are, and in what category, what area. And this is a really powerful way to think about how you build. I'm going to pause and just check in to see first if this conceptually makes sense and how a visual SWOT analysis might be useful for you. So just gonna stop share just for a little bit and just get a sense of that. So Gary, intentionally blurry because it didn't matter what the sticky note said in this particular example. What I really wanted to show was the colors and why the colors, yes, exactly. That you don't even need to know what those things say to know immediately where the strength of this organization was, where its opportunities were. But we're going to give you an example where you can see very clearly. Ajwa? Yes. I see you've unmuted, but I can't hear you just yet. Nope, we still can't hear you. Mhm. As Audra gets her sound together, is there any questions or anything else? Nancy?
Yes, I want to thank you for showing that visual. I've worked on SWATs before, but it's more like on a graph part. But doing the sticky note really provides us everybody as an organization to put some input. What others may find as a strength, others might find as a weakness. So it's really good to see that and see where those gaps are because everybody has a different idea of what I guess where the gaps are and where the opportunities are. So thank you for offering that visual. Took note of that.
Yay. Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. It is. It's that's another great insight is that sometimes your perspective, we think we see things clearly, but that's not always true. And that's the beautiful thing about what this analysis can do. It can give you others' perspectives or ways that you haven't thought about something, or maybe you did think this particular thing was a real strength, but when someone else put it in a different context, you saw it was, an opportunity that we could push in a different way and make something else happen. So that's great. Yeah. Other thoughts or comments? Adra, did your sound get fixed out of curiosity? Okay. Well, you could put in the chat or when you think you got the sound corrected, we'll happy to come back to you. Any other thoughts or comments before we continue forward? All right. All right. I'm gonna try some crazy thing and see what we can do. All right. So I am going to go back to share screen. Now, again, as you can imagine, you can easily do this activity in person. Get your group together. You can talk about your organization with your team, with your board, with a department. You can roll storm bud anything. Here's a draft of your newsletter. Let's roll storm bud it to see if we've missed something. What are the positives? What are the negatives? What are the opportunities before we send it out? And so we can have folks on your team do a roll storm bud and get some insight. But the one thing that we all have in common in the call today is Elevate Youth California. So I thought we would just try to see what we could do. But first, I need to introduce you to one of my favorite tools. And there are lots of sticky tools. There's Zoom Whiteboard, there's Jamboard, there's Miro. I personally just like Miro. And so what I'm going to do is that this will be in your toolbox. It gives you a tutorial, a video tutorial to how to use Mural. So if you want to really become adept at using the tool, you can watch the tutorial and play around with it. But I created a practice board. I'm going to drop the link into the chat. We're just going to just try something crazy to see if we can if I can get you a little bit comfortable with using the tool. So But first, I'm going to show you the tool, and then I'm going to share the link. So I'm going to stop share for a second, and then I'm going to share a different screen. Excuse me. and 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 then I'm going to drop the link. So I'm going to give you the link to the practice board, and what I want you to do is when you double click into the white space, you can just enter as a visitor. You don't have to give up your email or anything like that. And you can uh, if you want to set up an account, it's a free account. You know, I love the free tools. Dr. Madden loves free tools. So this is another free tool. If you double click into the white space, it'll create a sticky note. This area in the lower right-hand corner is a mini map. It kind of tells you where you are in the infinite white space. Sometimes you might be way down here. I'm in the lower right-hand corner, and you're like, where are the sticky notes? And it's because you're so far away. So you have to look at the mini map. This is the area in the lower right-hand corner, and you have to use your pointer tool to get you back to where the activity is, where you see all of the other little squares. The other thing that's important is your ability to zoom in and out. You do it just like you would do your phone on your trackpad of your laptop or using your mouse. You can use your two fingers to zoom in, or again, in this lower right-hand corner, in this mini map, you see that minus and plus. That allows you to zoom in if you plus or zoom out if you minus. Because the worst thing that you can do is just make your sticky note ginormous. And that's not super helpful because then you're like, okay, no. So you just want to zoom in instead of making your sticky note really big. So what I want you to do, I'm going to share the link. I just want you to try, you know, I want you to come in, double click and create a sticky note. I want you to write something on it. And then I want you to move it around. So all you have to do is select it and you can double click to create. You can select it and you can start writing on it. You can pick it up and move it around. So I am going to drop that link in the chat and we're going to see what happens. All right. Here we go. All right, so you can click the link and it should take you right to the document. You could enter as a visitor and you don't have to sign in. And just again, go in there. Let's spend a few minutes, get familiar with the space. Just create a sticky note, double click in the white space, create a sticky note, test moving some sticky notes around, test writing on a sticky note, and here's the digital way that you can use this tool. It's really super helpful if you have to work remotely, just having a document that your team could use no matter where they are. You can go back to this document. It's lots of really awesome stuff you can do. I love that you guys are trying this out. This really is bringing me joy to my heart right now. Wonderful. Excellent. I love sticky notes too. And this is like, we're being green now. It's like, we don't have to, because I'll be like, man, I got to throw all these sticky notes back. Put them in the recycle bin. Now we just have a document in the cloud. Some of you have found some of the other cool tools on here, like the, yes, the writing tool.
Dr. Madden, for this platform,
Yes.
do you know if we're able to download it or save it?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. So they probably want your email address to set up an account. And with the ORG accounts, I'm pretty sure it's free, but I think it might be free in general. And when you set up the account, you can save it saves the Bureau board. It has a link. You can share the link. There are so many things that you can do. You can I'm gonna did my screen change? Because I'm going to take us to our second activity. Did my screen change? Or I might need to stop share and reshare. I'm going to stop share and reshare just a couple of techniques. Uh-oh. Did Nancy, did you get the right link? I just see your, okay, I'm gonna put it back in. Thank you. I'm sorry I missed that. All right, so good. Here's the link to the mural board. I put it in the chat one more time. I think it worked because many of you got there. All right, so to answer the last question, I'm gonna share a different board just to give you a sense of it. So this is the board we're gonna practice next, a rose thorn bud example next. And to answer your question, you can absolutely save the boards. You can share the link. You can see who can, for example, view versus edit, and then you copy the link and you could share that out with your team, for example. You can set the timer. You can download the document as a PDF or as a JPEG. You can copy and paste these as copy as text, for example. I could copy those and then I can paste them into a Word document. So everything that gets written on the sticky notes, I could copy that as text and save it into a Word document. So I find that really helpful for my clients if I'm doing this activity where I want them to also have the notes as well as the visual. So it's a very, very useful tool. There's lots of templates that you can build from. So it's super helpful. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear about that Jamboard. That's terrible. I hate when you learn how to use the tool and then they just stop updating. So good. Any questions before I move forward? It was the mural, and again, it's not intuitive for everyone. So don't feel like, don't be overwhelmed if the technology is getting in the way. You can easily use these tools in person. I just wanted to give you an additional option for using the tool remotely. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All right, well then let's try the exercise. So now that you have the tool, let's put the tool in practice. And so we're just going to do a rose thorn bud, and but I want to give you the context and of when I would typically use a rose thorn bud. Okay, yes. Sarah is right. Miro is another opportunity that's used, and so yeah, it's just what you like. I just happen to like Miro. It works with the other tools that I like. My other design tools works really nicely with. So, but yeah, I've heard really good things about Miro as well. All right, good. Okay, so I am going to go back and share my screen, and we're going to practice the rose thorn bud. So again, because you're not in your organizational context, the one thing you all have in common is Elevate Youth California. So I'm going to have you do a rose thorn bud about Elevate Youth California. So pink for positives, yellow for negatives, and the green for opportunities. Buds, rose thorn bud. All right, so I am going to, we're going to do the rose thorn bud exercise. Remember that the topic is going to be Elevate Youth California. And just as a reminder, pink, positive, thorn, negative, bud, opportunities. All right. All right. So I am going to give you a new mural board. All right, so I'm going to drop the link into the chat. So this is a new link to take us to a fresh mural board. So you can again join as a visitor and we'll get you on the right pathway. All right, so good, I see you. So again, one idea per sticky note. We're just gonna try this out, rose, and then if you need another pink sticky note, wherever you double click close to, that's the color that I'll create. If you double click close to the green, one idea per sticky note. So some strengths about Elevate Youth, weaknesses, opportunities. I'll create some more so you guys don't feel like you are have to be on. There's some more stickies in other places. So I'll just to give you a sense of it, I'll put just I'll put 5 minutes on the timer. So we'll spend 5 minutes just to give you the sense of the exercise. And I put more sticky notes here on the side. And someone's way down here. So where are the stick? All right, you're making your way up to it. All right, excellent, excellent. Yes. Again, if you have any questions, you can pop them into the chat. I just wanted to come out of the share screen to make sure there weren't more questions. And um, but again, a super useful tool to kind of help you along. You can really take progress. Another couple minutes on this as we populate one idea per sticky, making them color coordinated. Great to see so many of you with me on this. Audra, were you ever able to get your volume? I remember you had a question I wanted to go unanswered. Just been another, minute and a half to populate so we can get to the next. Okay, wonderful. Okay, now what I like to do is move us to the next part of the work. So you have all of these sticky notes, all of the colors, all of the ideas. I put some blank labels here. I want to see if there are any categories, any clusters that are emerging, So, and what we would label that cluster. All right, excellent. Somebody's identified partnerships. Excellent. Funding. So let's bring that label over, and then let's bring the sticky notes, no matter what color they are, and put them under those clusters, And we can create some additional labels too. So you see different clusters. All right, excellent. Somebody made that bigger. So, okay, I love it. Yes, that's right. This is awesome. Now, despite colors, you just bring the sticky notes, looking across all the sticky notes, and you put them into the different categories, the different clusters. Impact, sustainability. All right, I want to create some more white space over here because this seems like it's getting great. This is excellent. So what you're doing is moving the sticky notes, no matter what the color, into the appropriate category. A little bit. Right. Excellent. Really excellent. Wonderful. Really wonderful. Man, this is great.
Dr. Madden, is there a way you can
Yes.
put, if you feel one is on several, how do you duplicate it?
You can. Okay, that's a great question. Let's take an example of impact. Let's say youth empowerment under impact is seen as a positive. I could Control C, copy that sticky note, and I could also say that it is and also could go under leadership. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to paste it and put it here. And let's just say it's an opportunity in the leadership. So I'm going to click that pink sticky note, select it, and then I'm going to turn that into a green sticky note by selecting a different color. So you can copy and paste, or you could just change the sticky note color. So there's lots of ways that you could do that. Does that make sense? This is really outstanding what you all have done here.
I have a question,
Oh man,
Dr.
you got all. Yes, absolutely.
Is
Done.
there a risk? Because I know with Jamboard, one of the problems was people could actually delete other people's sticky notes and comments live. Is that possible in this platform, or is there a way that you can prevent that?
Well, it it absolutely is possible. I could delete the sticky notes and they would be gone. So I think that if deleting the sticky notes is so perfect, because really what the question is that what is the deeper challenge? And we're going to talk about that as another technique and what's called a problem tree analysis, because the problem isn't the sticky notes and being able to delete them. The problem is that the trust hasn't been built in the space so that it can be shared and people's voices can be heard and respected. But if we don't address issues at their roots, we're never going to solve them. So it's not getting a tool or technology that doesn't allow you to delete. It's really about how do we build the trust so that we can hear different perspectives in the space.
Yeah, I think
so.
A lot of times I found that it was accidental. People when they were playing with the program, right? And they'd start writing and they'd start to, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
That's
so it's
fair.
almost like
now
there needs to be like a little training at the beginning, because otherwise
that's
you get
fair.
people doing all kinds of all kinds of stuff in your thing, right? Just
no, that's true. And it's true even for this I try to do a quick introduction to the tool. Yes. And Sarah suggested that an undo or history option you could use to give you some sense of what was there. Mm-hmm. And then later, if you're sharing the board, person can view and not edit it. So there are those options as well. Man, you guys did so amazing in this work. That's awesome. It's just so great. You did the Rose Thorn Bud, and then you categorized the work. And so you could see, and what this tells you, this visual SWOT analysis, even without going deep into the details of the sticky notes, is that when it comes to partnerships, Elevate Youth California is ripe with opportunities, so much opportunity around the partnership piece. When it comes to impact, so many strengths and so much opportunity, some weaknesses, but again, overwhelming strengths when it comes to impact. When it comes to resources, significant strengths, some weaknesses, a little bit of opportunity. When it comes to leadership, significant strengths and opportunity, as well as some weaknesses. Sustainability, lots of weaknesses, as we can imagine, just the conditions that we have to operate in, some opportunity. When it comes to funding, as we can imagine, more weaknesses than anything, but still some strengths and opportunity. So this is the power of the Rose Thorn Bud and why I call it a visual SWOT analysis. So this is really excellent work, and it gives you really good tools and information to move from. I'm going to just stop sharing, even though you can continue to look at the board, and just get your thoughts on the tool itself and being able to use a Rose Thorn Bud and how it might be useful in your work using this technique. Any thoughts or comments?
Well, this is Lynette from Kids in Conflict. I'm sitting in on behalf of Mr. Gardner. And for us, our organization is a small organization, so it definitely helps with our strengths as far as we have a lot of experience in leaderships. But the weakness or our thorn is just the technology and being able to build upon on the staff. And the opportunity, we have great opportunities for partnerships, networking, and resourcing. So transitioning that to our kiddos with our CHAMP program, this is an amazing tool to help them visually see their strengths, their weaknesses, and what they think, what one person may view as a weakness, someone else might be able to show with them, no, this is really a strength that you have. And this is an opportunity where you can have a new way, a new perspective of looking at things. So thank you, because I was not familiar with any of these platforms. So thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Free, A. B, it really engages young people because they get to, it's a visual learning, it's participation, participatory learning, it's all that good stuff. And then if it comes to you later, you can just go back into into the board and add things as you need to. So, that is free.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Good. Good. Again, the technique, you see how it can be helpful as a visual SWOT analysis, and again, how the clustering can help you organize the things in a very useful way. The power of the technique. Any thoughts or comments? All right, good. Wonderful. Okay. Good. Okay, hold a little space for my introverts just in case they got a comment. Wonderful. Love to hear that, Valerie. Yay. Excellent. Okay. All right. I want to do one more, and this is another useful tool. And again, you can use the tool in person and digitally, same using the Miro board. And so I'm going to explain the tool and why I think it's very useful, and then show you how to use the tool. So I'm going to share my screen again and go back to my slides. Okay, so the second tool that I want you to understand is called the problem tree analysis. And so the problem tree analysis this is one of my favorite tools. It's really a way of exploring causes and effects of a particular issue, because we have to understand both cause and effects, because sometimes we need strategies that are addressing both causes and effects. And sometimes we only deal with challenges at the cause level, at the surface level, and so they resurface. And so if we spend some time digging deeper to find out what's at the root issue of some of these challenges, and maybe exert some energy there, it can help prevent those same challenges from reemerging. So it's just a way to think about things, to see if you're addressing things at the surface and at the roots. And so the tree is really, I'm gonna stop here just for a second, talk to you all. The tree is like the metaphor, and so you have the challenge in the trunk of the tree, and then you think about the leaves, how the challenge shows up, and then you think about the roots. What are some of the root issues of the challenges? And this is interesting because this builds off of like a management science kind of technique, Toyota in their Kaizen, optimal excellence. They talk about the 5 whys, and they talk about if you want to get at the root issue, you have to interrogate a question by asking why 5 times. And if well, why is that? Well, why is that? Well, why is that? 5 times, you can really get at the issue, of the problem. But I like the problem tree analysis. It's sort of similar to the 5 whys. It just gives you a visual understanding of, how do you get at the root issue. So let's see how to use that tool. I'm going to share my screen back. And so again, the tree is the metaphor. We're trying to build this shared understanding. The problem or challenge statement is in the trunk of the tree, and then the causes are at the roots, and then the effects are, in the leaves. And I always like to put the challenge in the trunk, and then first talk about the effects, so the leaves, and then I go to the roots, because I always want the roots on my mind. I always want the roots on the minds of the client. So I always start in the leaves. And so here's just an example of what some of my grad students did using the sticky notes. But again, you can also use it in person. And so you have they did a combination of, they put the challenges, the causes and the effects, again, working in the leaves first, looking at the effects. How does this problem show up? Then they clustered it like we did with the rose thorn bud. And then they looked at the roots. What were some of the effects? And then started to think about those effects. So again, you can use this tool in person and online. And so I thought we would practice using a challenge statement. And the challenge statement is, there are people in the neighborhood who are insecure about where their next meal will come from. So it's food insecurity challenge. So in your respective communities, how does that show up? What does that look like when you have food insecurity? You know, so how is it seen? So again, the leaves. So I want you to start in the leaves. And then I want us to think about what are some of those root issues. So let's give it a try. So I'm going to share my screen, and I have I have created a problem tree for us to test out. Excuse me. And let me just show you what it looks like at first, and then I will give you the link. Okay, so first I'm going to share screen. And I just have like a simple tree looking something. And we'll have you create some sticky notes. The colors don't matter, unless you want them to. And you can, when there's food insecurity, what does it mean? How does it show up? And then so spend some time on the effects, and then after some time is spent there, spend some time on what are some of the causes when you're like really trying to find out what are the root issues. But first start in the leaves. First put some ideas, one per sticky, how this shows up in your neighborhoods when there's food insecurity. So I'm going to share the link, and I'm going to put that into the chat and invite you to join. Okay, put the link in the chat. You should be able to come on in. Maybe I should make these green.
There's no link.
Uh-oh. Oh, sorry about that. Here we go. There you go. Thank you for letting me know. There we go. Excellent. Lonnie, try double clicking a little away from it. Maybe it's too close to others in the screen. Maybe we could try. And then moving your sticky note to where you wanted it to be. Thank you. Thanks for not giving up. Excellent. Wow, this is so great. You know, if you want, you can cluster and label some of these effects just to give you a better understanding of, you know, it's really great work. Think about, see if there's any questions. Okay. Good. So good. This root work is really good. Uh-oh, somebody made a big sticky note. Zoom in. Zoom in so you can see it versus making the sticky note bigger. All right, this is excellent. So the reason that the problem tree analysis is such a powerful tool is that sometimes we need to address challenges both in the leaves and at the roots. That way we can have an intervention to keep the challenge, the effect from not reappearing. So, we might do issues that help youth feel less isolated, for example, but we also might partner with an organization that that also educates around, losing the stigma around food banks, or we might be engaged and supportive of neighborhood planning because when we have poor planning, food security can emerge, food insecurity can emerge, So when we can see the challenges both in the leaves and at the roots, it gives us a better sense of the work that we can be doing to really address the challenge, to address the issue immediately that's at the surface, but also do some root work so we can get at some of the bigger issues. So it becomes a really powerful approach to the work. So excellent. I'm gonna first say just such excellent work that you picked up the tool and just do the tool, the concept around how to use the tools. And these are just really incredible design thinking techniques that really help your organizations. I'm gonna stop share just for a second and really get a check in to see how the tool itself, the problem tree analysis, looking at the challenge, looking at the leaves, then looking at the roots, how that potentially can be useful for you in your respective organization. So any thoughts or comments? Well,
I agree with
yay.
one of the ladies that spoke earlier, how I have gone through SWOT analysis before, thousands and millions of times, but someone who's done it before, I kind of get it. But this is the way you explained it this way is good for someone who has never really been through it before, and it kind of breaks it down and lets it make more sense, more palatable, that you can actually engage. Where I'm traditionally like the 4 blocks, and so and then you do all that, and yeah. But this was great. Yeah.
Thanks, Lowell. Yay. Other thoughts or comments on either of the tools? Techniques, really trying to advance your understanding, just give you so much greater insight on your work, and how you can approach it.
So I am one of those that Lowell just talked about. Having used them. So this is amazing.
Yay.
Very easy to use, very user-friendly. So this is going to be really good because, we're approaching a point in our organization where this is going to be very key for us. So thank you so much for the tools.
No, that's what I love, putting stuff in people's toolbox. I come from generations of builders. This is my legacy. Valerie.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic and definitely plan to use it. And I've used similar tools. One thing I know that I've had to do is make sure that participants are on, as much as possible, not using this on a phone.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's super difficult. So what I've done if I do this is beforehand, when I'm sending out the invitation, is to say, be on a computer, because it's really challenging if they're using, and especially youth, they want to do everything on their phone, right? It's like, be on a computer. So that's just one.
Yes.
Tip.
No. Yes, you're so right. And we had one participant join on the phone today. I was like, oh, it's not today for a phone, but she's still on the phone. I love it. And hopefully I'll follow up with some Zoom time where I can show her some more techniques. And so you're absolutely right. And then this is just I remember doing a exercise that's in your to-go box, but I'm just going to explain it. It's a heavier build, and I remember doing it for a client, and like 80% of their staff were on their phones. I was like, oh my God. So I had to pivot, and I made it into a PowerPoint really quickly. I'm such a genius because because otherwise it was not gonna go down. And so always, and I always believe you gotta love people the way that they need to be loved. And these young people, they do some things on the phone that I think is magical. So you can make this work on the phone. It is not the preferred way, but we're gonna meet these kids where they at and bring them closer to where we want them to be. So I love that. Thank you so much. Nancy, you had a hand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big visual person, and anytime I can turn something like the quadric of the SWAT, make something not so, what's the word? Attractive. I love making it attractive and making it fun. And this was like this whole tree. I'm like, oh, I love this. Yes. You can talk to anybody on my team, but that's the kind of creativeness of just like, okay, how can I make something that doesn't seem to be interesting? How can I make it fun and interactive? But us as an organization, we're going through a lot of transition. We have a lot of new people coming in who have experience working with us. So this is definitely something that I think is very much needed within our organization, and also a deeper dive into our project. I mean, I'm like 6-7 months in with Elevate Youth, so they've already done so much before, but now it's like, okay, we're now in the middle, we're coming towards the end. Let's dive deeper and see where where are the root causes, what are the new issues that are coming up that perhaps we didn't know before we actually started this project.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yes. No, this is great. I love it. And I'm gonna also share the Rose Thorn Bud so they can get I love one of my favorite comments on the Rose Thorn Bud was, can we be forever partners? I was like, yeah, that's a real opportunity. I love that. Excellent. All right, good. Thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing. Good. Any other thoughts or comments or questions? Does it make sense? Seeing the ability to see things at the roots as well as in the leaves, as a sense to understanding the complexity and the layers of challenges. Okay, wonderful. Okay, wonderful. All right, I'm going to share my slides, and then I'm just going to explain another technique and walk you through it. We won't do the exercise, but it's just something for you to think about. And if you want to learn more, we can find some time on Zoom and I can kind of walk you through, but you'll have the boards that you can go back to, save as. You could duplicate a mural board, duplicate it, and then have it as your own. And so that can work. So share screen, go back to my slides. Well, first, yes, you're right. Let's go to that final tree. That final tree that just, you guys really brought it together real nice, like, so yay. All right, I'm gonna go back to my slide then. Good job, folks. Just love it. All right, so. All right, the next technique is another really useful one, and it's the start of a build. So you can see when we did the Rose Thorn Bud, we did the Rose Thorn Bud, then we did the affinity clustering. So that was like 2 parts of the tool. And so statement starters, all it says is just an approach to phrasing problems that invites broader exploration, and I want to go into why this is important. So it's the premise is that the best solutions start with great questions. And so if we want to have good answers, we should start with good questions. And sometimes when we have a challenge, we will embed, that solution is always embedded. And so, we need a forum to discuss improving police and community relations. Like that's true, but that's one way that we can improve, police and community relations. A forum is just one way. But if we instead change the statement into a question, we can then invite other ideas into how we can come up with the solution. And so the statement starter suggests that when we have a challenge, we just reframe it as a question. How might we? In what ways might we? How to? And by reframing the challenge into a question, we can then get lots of responses. And so when we can use those statement starters to start to ideate all of these different ways, we can then open up another tool that is really robust and powerful called the Creative Matrix. And the Creative Matrix is really just a way of inviting these broader ways to explore solutions. So the premise is really based upon this idea that, to have a good idea, sometimes you need a lot of ideas. And so what the Creative Matrix allows us to do is some divergent thinking and then some convergent thinking. And what I always like to say, first you create choices, then you make choices. And so having this types of thinking allows us to ideate, to get a bunch of opportunities, options, and then determine which ones make the most sense for us. So first you create choices, then you make choices. So divergent thinking and then convergent thinking. And what the Creative Matrix does is that the way that the brain works, it's much easier for us to come up with ideas at these intersections. It's just like when you're working on something and you're starting to do nothing, it's tough. But if you got like what I call an HFD, a horrible first draft, then you can start to make it better. You can iterate and it starts to get stronger and stronger. But starting from nothing, it's tough. So we're going to use brain science to help us come up with some good ideas using these intersections. And so the way that you would set up the Creative Matrix is that you start with some statement starters. How might we questions? You put some categories in place, and then you ideate at the intersection. And then once you create all of these ideas, then you select the ones that you want to move forward. So we'll let it pause for a second. See, before I go further, I think I have to. My whole life. That's funny. Thank you, Ari. Any questions so far? All right, good. All right. So this idea of statement starters, you're changing, your solutions into questions so you can invite broader participation, because all of us are smarter than one of us. And your idea is just one way of doing something, but if we reframe it into a question, then we can have lots of ideas. So let's start with some how might we questions, statement starters. I'm gonna share my screen back. So here's some examples of some statement starters. How might we get youth involved in making a change for their community? How might we come together as a community and improve community policing? How might we build trust between the police and neighborhood residents? How might we keep young people safe from violent crimes? These are just examples that I ran with an organization that also supported youth. And so we have these statement starters, and then there's some categories that we can pick. So it could be events and programs like meetups or conferences or workshops. It could be people and partnerships. It could be games, competitions. It could be celebrities and superstars, or it could be a wild card, anything that you think that can help. And so the way that the Creative Matrix works is that you set up and again, this can be done in person or over Zoom. You create your setup, and then you And then you have your team ideate at those intersections. And the thing that makes the Creative Matrix a very useful tool is that, again, it can be done in person or in Teams. And let me show you what a digital setup looks like. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see. Hold on. Because I just did this, and you can just take this mural board and save it as a copy and play around with it. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. So share screen. So this is a setup for a Creative Matrix. So what you have here are your statement starters. How might we? And they could be anything. They could be any challenge related to your organization. I just picked these based upon a project that I did with a different client. How might we get youth involved in making a change for their community? We saw these statements. There you go. And then along in this column, you have the different categories: events and programs, people and partnerships, games and social media, celebrities and superstars, and then a wild card, whatever idea you might have. And so you can ideate pretty rapidly at the intersection of, events and programs and, making a change for their community. Maybe there's a program, and after, a youth government project that you come up with or program, or maybe you partner with city council to get a youth representative on the, this sort of, connection with the city council members, or maybe it's, night basketball, and it ends in discussions about what can happen differently in the community. And so all of these different ideas can come at the intersection of your statement starters and these different categories. And then you ideate in those sections, meaning that you put your idea on a sticky note and then you put them at that intersection of where those are. I'm gonna just pause for a second and see if there's any questions. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay, yes, I'm gonna send you a copy right now. Lowell, yes, please. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason. Strange, because I could hear you earlier.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you, yes.
We have a staff retreat at the end of October, like in about a week and a half. And what you just showed is like mind-blowing to me, because we have all these programs, but how do we say that this program is going to adhere to what you have across the top? I mean, we know the events, we know what we're doing, but across the top about the policy and involvement in the community and all of that, I'm like, okay, so this is something I can bring forward. And I'm saying, okay, this is the impact we're making. It's not just the impact that our program is to help youth, but guess what? It has a broader help. This is some of the problems. This is some of the things that we're impacting. So thank you for—
You're welcome. Absolutely.
Dollars you'd have it, but sorry.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to make sure you get a copy. Let me first show you. So I'm going to share screen, and then all you do is here at the top where it has the name, you could just do duplicate mural. So you'd have to set up your mural board. You can duplicate, and you could, once you have your mural account set up, you can go into this mural, duplicate the mural, and you can save it. But I'm going to send you this. If something happens, I can easily send you another one. Reach out. That's not a problem. So the way this exercise works is that that you would put so Lowell, how you would do it, for example, in your retreat, you would break up your staff into maybe 2 teams, and then you would make it into a competition, and you would just give them like 10 or 15 minutes, and you would say, get as many sticky notes on the board as you can. Maybe have a prize, a little Starbucks coffee card or something like that. I don't know. and you give them just 10 or 15 minutes to ideate, and whatever team has the most numbers of stickies wins. And the other thing that's really important is that this exercise is done in silence, and the first part of it. So people ideate in silence because you don't want anybody talking you out of your idea, because that always happens. You don't want anybody taking the floor, because that sometimes can happen. Sometimes you have extroverts and introverts intermingled in the same groups. So the first part of the exercise leans to the introverts, and then the second part leans to the extroverts. So you create space for everyone to have good ideas. So you give them all Post-it notes and pens, and you're like, if you're writing an idea and somebody has it in there, don't worry, just put your idea up. And you, again, it's time, it's done in silence, and it's a competition. And it just really brings out the best in your team. And then after they ideate, get all of their ideas up, then you'll say, we just spent 15 minutes on this issue and we came up with 100 ideas. You know, it's really amazing. And then you have some discussion, and you have them ask them to pick their top 8 ideas or top 10 ideas, whatever that you want them to do. And so once you have them get their top ideas, then you would move into what's called an importance difficulty matrix. And so what that does is that you ask them to take one actionable idea, their top actionable ideas, and you move them to these sticky notes. And then you first ask them to rank them from low level of importance to high level of importance, or impact, if that's a better word. So once they, rank these ideas, from low level of importance to high level of importance, something like this. Once you have them put their ideas, sorry about that. Then you would say to them, once their ideas are listed, they stay in their swim lanes, and then you raise them to the level of difficulty. And no idea. So again, you rank these ideas, and they're 1 through 8, for example, and then you raise them. They stay in their swim lane, and then you raise them to the level of difficulty or importance. And nothing can be equally difficult. Something has to be more difficult or less difficult. You see? So this idea number 4 is the most difficult. So it would go in the top ranking area. And so that allows you to prioritize your ideas and give you a sense of what's important and not. And it is I hate to do the reveal, but it's really super impactful when you can just say, this is the next most difficult idea. This is the easiest idea here, and maybe this idea is level 5. And so once you get all of these ideas ranked, then you can, and this is, let's just say, the easiest idea. Then what it does, you can order them, and this is what the instructions kind of tell you. And now you can see which of your ideas are luxuries. Any of the ideas in this quadrant are luxury ideas because they're very expensive, but not as important. Any of the ideas that end up in this quadrant are strategic. They're strategic because they're very important, high level of importance, but expensive. So you need time to raise money for those ideas. These ideas are targeted, that are in this quadrant, targeted because it's sort of like low-hanging fruit. And these are your high-value ideas because they're very important and not very expensive. So you can get your targeted and high-value ideas done in the short term, and your strategic and luxury ideas are more long-term projects or ideas. Okay. And that's what you've done is three things. You've done your statement starters in a creative matrix, and then you've done an importance difficulty matrix. And it's such a big setup that I don't have the time to walk through it all. But so I put that in your to-go box. And I will share the link to this board, and I will put those sticky notes back. And I'm happy to give you some additional insight on the board on some one-to-one time as well. Any thoughts or questions? I know it's got to be a lot. But I want to share that sticky board so you can kind of come in and take a closer look at it, and go from there. All right, I'm dropping that link into the board so you have it. No, absolutely. This is a gift. All right. All right, that's the link. I'll take those, put that back together so you can kind of get your sense of so it'll be fresh again. And again, if happy to go over these. Any questions or anything before? I know it was a lot, but hopefully it was worthwhile.
How do we duplicate the board again?
Thank you for that question. So first you need to set up an account. So did you set up your Mural account?
I did that, yeah.
So I'm going to share screen. All right. So in the right hand corner where it has the name of the document of the creative matrix, you see that, Natalie? There's the down arrow, and you see duplicate mural.
It didn't give me those options. We'll try again. Let me see. I did sign up though.
Okay, good.
I also don't see it either. Like when you click on the drop down menu.
Just yeah.
And you when you came into this board, you came in your account versus as a visitor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I added it to starred, but I only get find and replace and add to starred.
Let's see. Hold on.
Maybe it's a premium tool.
Yeah, but I have the free version, so I don't know what. All right, let me try something else. So what if I went to a blank mural, and let me see if this works. Control A, copy. All right, so go open it. What I did is that I went into, let me unlock some of those things I just locked up. But I did a copy paste. So go into the document that I sent and then do a Control C, go into a blank mural that you could create, and then do a Control V. All right, I unlocked everything so you can copy everything. So again, I just went into the creative matrix. I did a Control A for all, Control C for copy, And then I went into a blank untitled mural board, and then I just did Control V and everything copied in there.
How did you get to the untitled mural board?
I went into my account, and then all I did was create
Account?
nope, I went into my account, and then I did create new mural. So you see this upper right hand new mural button at the top when you open your
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
new mural, create mural. I click in here and I don't want to add a template, and Control V. Boom. And if that doesn't work, send me a note. I'll send you a board. Did that copy paste technique work?
I'm just still navigating. I can't
Okay.
get to that dashboard, but I'm looking.
Okay, good. Share screen. Good. Excellent. Okay, I think I have pushed you all to your limit today on new tools. Any last comments or questions? I welcome you to get on my calendar, and I can give you some additional coaching on the. Yay, Natalie, it worked! Yay, I'm super excited. Always a workaround. Now you just got to be committed to it. All right, excellent. Well, you got a comment question before we go? All right, good to see your face. Always. All right, Shira, I'll pass it back to you. I think we're good for today. I think I've taken them to the edge, but not over it.
Would you
But
mind
I'm
sending your
close.
link one more time? Sorry, doctor, would you mind sending your link one more time, your calendar link in the chat?
Yeah, Shira has the link to the perfect. There it is. Yeah,
Okay.
excellent.
I think there was one question from Susan. I'm not sure if it was addressed or not.
Oh, okay, thank you. This is absolutely systems thinking. This is absolutely systems thinking. You know, you're thinking about, you know, are there patterns that you can recognize? Are there ways that you can intervene? You know, design thinking is completely in alignment with systems thinking, thinking and systems. So this is why there's that familiarity. So thank you for catching that, Shira. I full on missed that. I love that question too. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I know that our team, we were chatting about how great of a tool that was and how we want to use it ourselves. So it sounds like this was a very useful training, hands-on, collaborative as you can be in a Zoom environment. And we're so happy to have had this space and opportunity. So I did drop in the link to sign up for a coaching session. We have some that are coming up this week. So if you've signed up for a session, you'll be getting a reminder today. Also, just want to share that we've added new dates for November and December. So definitely sign up. If you've already participated in a coaching session and you would like some additional support, we do encourage you to sign up again. So Again, thank you for being here and taking part in today's training. Our team will work to have the recording posted as well as the supporting materials. Also, there will be a training next week, so a reminder about that trainer went out, I believe, yesterday, and you can also see that training featured in the EYC October newsletter, and I believe that that went out this week as well. So thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, wishing all of you a wonderful day.